Hi, I would like to demonstrate to you the new automated backup feature that's been added to JCB. It is part of a extension which I've called the API, which really gives you the option of querying JCB via a URL to perform certain functions. The first of which would be to actually generate a backup. We're not sure exactly what kind of features we should be adding to this API, and we've started a discussion about this on GitHub, and you're welcome to give me a shout. Just send me an email. You can just check here. My email address is behind this link here. Features we want to add to the API. Currently, the first one, like I said, is the backup feature. Now, JCB already has in its component area an export component feature, which we basically just extended to automate. But we left it as well here as a button called backup, and it actually is the same feature, except you can now manually also trigger that feature. Now what this backup feature does, either being triggered by a cron job or being triggered by this button, is it actually takes all your components and exports them, encrypts them, stores them on a local folder, and emails the key to a trusted email address which you have set up. Now, the components that are in your trash will not be actually part of this backup. So only components that are published or unpublished or archived will be in the backup. Everything else will be ignored, and basically when the backup runs either manually or automated via a cron job, it will take those components, use the specific keys as it would with an exporting of a components, and encrypt them and store them in that folder, as I said. Now, there are some things you need to set up for all this to work as expected. The first of these being in the options area of JCB, there are some new features. So let's just open that. So we see there is now a mail configuration, a DKIM, and a cron job tab been added, and also this field here called API user. Maybe let me start with this field. The API user will primarily be used for the ID that is used in the permission structure. You see, when you are in the components area and you trigger this feature manually, it actually uses this current logged in user to determine whether that the components being encrypted and backed up, whether he has the permission to actually do that. Now, it's a way, as we increase the permission structure of JCB, you might end up having components that certain individuals who are in certain groups may not have access to them. And then there might be components and fields and views that they may have access to, or some that they may not have access to. And so we're already now laying some of the foundation to make sure that there isn't some loophole where either by triggering a batch update or an export of components or backup, they can't extrude certain components which they actually by default don't have access to. I know that's a long explanation, but that's just to give you a background to why we still need an API user. We still need a user which now, if it's automated, the backup, that this user's ID actually allows him to make the backup. So that means that the API user should be a user which has the permission to all the actual components, fields, and well, everything actually in the JCB component. Now, it is secure because, like I said, the component gets compiled and stored locally. We might consider adding the option to push the component back up to an FTP server, but that part is not fully functional yet. We have had the proposals made to do that so that the backup is actually not even on the same system, but that it's secure on another system, so that if this system collapses, you're still safe. You still got your data out. So that sounds to me as a good idea, and so we will be adding an FTP option as well, which will very much work similar as your components when you compile a component and it sends it off to a sales server or such. That is really the same features we'll make use of. Anyway, so that's just talking about selecting an API user and why that is important. Now, when we go to the Cron Job tab, we'll see that there are some basic instructions here. For those of you familiar with cron jobs, I suppose everything is self-explanatory. Those who are not, I would suggest you Google around, find some tutorials, read up, make sure you know what you're doing, and that you're very comfortable in setting up a cron job. There are various ways for you to trigger this URL. The system currently detects whether your system actually can run curl requests, and if it can't, it will fall back on the wget option, assuming that JCB is installed in an environment that allows these two functions to work. If not, you can simply take only the URL and run it in a cron job in the manner that is applicable to your system, and know that this URL actually just triggers the backup to start, and when the backup's finished, it actually just tells you the same message that you'll get if you run the backup by clicking backup here. You'd see there's a green message that pops up saying yes, the backup was done, the email was sent. Those are the only messages that also actually gets returned upon this URL. So they are the same. Now, we're currently throwing that response away, but you could add it to a log depending on how regularly this cron job is running. There isn't a date currently. I think it might make sense for us to add a date, but at this stage there isn't one. Okay, so now if you're running in a firewall, your Joomla website has a firewall installed, like RS Firewall, then you might need to adapt your curl request to behave like a real browser. And here is a post on Stack Overflow that could actually help you understand more about that. So now currently the cron backup folder path is set here, and so it currently only backups to a local folder. As I said, we will add an FTP option here. We'll still work out how we can do that and still have it secure. Joomla doesn't by default actually encrypt fields in the global configuration of your component, and so that might be part of what makes it difficult for us to implement this here, but we'll work on that. The point is, currently it stores it into a local folder and it emails the backup key to the email address that you set in here. Now make sure that that email address is secure and that it is safe, obviously, because the keys are being sent to it. Now here is a naming structure for your file. By default it actually adds only up till the day, so it will make backups all through the day but overwrite the file every time. Unless you add an hour, then it will only per hour overwrite it, and if you add a minute, it will actually never overwrite it because it will be a different minute every time. So that is to rename your package and to see how much of the backups you want to keep. And if we go to the mail configurations area, you see that it currently is set to use the global mail configurations, which is your Joomla default. Now, I would advise that you use a very secure method of sending the emails. So either SMTP, be overriding the SMTP settings here, or if you use the global ones, then override or ensure that your global email settings in Joomla is also using SMTP, that it actually runs through an SSL and is secure. Okay, the DKIM is also a added feature which can increase trust and security of your emails. Then there is the company details, which at this stage is important to add, since it will also become part of the backup package. And we will look at that again when we restore a backup to show you where this information comes up. Okay, so that's some of the settings you need to first set within your global configurations. Now, once you've set those settings, company settings, your cron job settings, your local path, the email, the name, and your user API user, you can save and close this area, and we can start looking at a component to see this feature in action. Now, since this is a default Joomla website, Joomla install and JCB install, there's only one component here, and it's the demo component. Now, usually the demo component doesn't have an encryption key, so I'll open it, and I've already set it because I've done this video a few times. So you'll basically come and set an export key in at least one of the components that will be part of the backup. If any one of the components that are being backup have an export key, it will actually encrypt all the components with that export key. If multiple ones have an export key, it will combine those keys to use as the encryption key. It hashes those keys, so the actual key is not what is actually being used, and the actual key that's being used is the one that will be emailed out to that trusted email address. So we'll save and close the demo component, and then we will just run a manual backup here, which, like I explained before, is really similar to the cron job, except that it's triggered by clicking this button. Okay, so we just click it there, and in a moment, since it's just one component, it's not a very big process, it should be finished quite quickly, and it will basically say, okay, the backup has been done successfully, the owner details was set. So if for some reason you forgot to set the owner details in the options area, it will actually tell you that here, and the email with the new key was sent. So now, to make sure that your backup actually works, you should now go check the folder in which you said the backup should be placed and see whether the backup is there, and also check the email address and see whether it has received the key. So I'll be doing that quickly. Okay, I see I have the backup actually here in the folder as expected. So the backup's been done. I can double click into the backup and make sure that it has all the expected files, and at this stage it looks like it does. If you have a lot of custom files that you've added into the component, there will also be an extra custom folder in the zip document, and not only an image one. Okay, so we will test this backup by actually importing it, but first let's see if we received the email as well. So here we can see that it also sent the email as expected with the corresponding key. We'll be using this key to test the backup. Be sure again, like I said, that it actually sends the key to a secure website email address, and that even the email that sends the email from Joomla is using a secure SSL via SMTP. Now let's test this backup. Now backup will only make sense if we actually lost our data. So I'm going to take the component and basically wipe this one, just delete it, throw that in trash, then go to trash and empty the trash. So now there's no components. Click on import components. Now we need to browse to the directory where that component was backed up. So we'll click on the directory tab. So there we have the components, the path to the actual backup package, and we click on get file. Now we will take that key that was sent to us via the email and we'll force the update, and we'll add that key here and we'll click continue. Sorry, I just stepped back for a moment again because I realized I didn't explain what you're seeing here. And like I said before, your package data of the owner of the package is displayed here, and the package details are displayed here. So if you have more than one component backed up, all of those components will show here in the components being imported, and here you will see the package owner details and get the key from this link here. So I'll again do this import. I just wanted to quickly get back to that. Let's click continue. Wonderful. So we have the component back. It's all been restored, and that's really what the purpose is of the backup, is that when something goes wrong, you can actually come back to where it was when the backup was made. We can test whether the backup has been successfully restored by going to the compiler and then selecting the component and clicking on compile. And as you can see, it's been completely successfully built, and we can now click on install the demo component, and then we can even go to the demo component and see that everything is actually working, adding a new look. There's all the various fields as it usually are available in the demo component. Well, thank you for watching. That is automated settings for JCB, and setting them up and making use of them.